Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, just like the olden days, mate, we've got a bumper packed Villa Filler for our wonderful listeners today, haven't we, mate? There's a lot to get through, but first of all, how you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm very good, mate. Very good. Ready, prepared. I think we've got everything. It's been a very busy few days, which is interesting because it sort of feels that the rumour mill on the old transfer since Monchi's come in has slowed down a little bit, don't you think? But it feels like over the last few days we're starting to kick back into gear, perhaps.
Yeah, I hope so, mate. I hope so. But I mean, there's been plenty of things outside of transfers that have sort of been keeping people busy and keeping discussions flowing and whatnot. John McGinn has committed himself another 4-year deal. Just to say, absolutely buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. He's been one of our better players since Unai's come in. I don't think that is controversial to say. And it just goes to show you that, you know, how good of a coach Unai is, really. And because I think there was a lot of us that did doubt Guinea, and there was definitely a lot of people that were preparing to sell him to whoever the highest bidder would have been. And I think it's important to have a sort of a core to your team, and obviously Guinea's been there since the promotion season, and you know, whether how good or bad they can be, not to say Guinea is bad, but obviously had struggled a bit under Steven Gerrard. I do think it's important to keep people, especially with the sort of transition that the club's going to be going under over the next 18 months. You have to keep people about who know the club, and Guinea just is that kind of character, isn't he, mate? And I felt quite emotional watching that interview. I don't know about you.
Yep. It's crazy to think how quickly and how in such a short period of time, but it's not really. I mean, 5 years he's been at the club now, 180 appearances. He'll be here until 2027 at the very least. He's someone that, 36 appearances in all comps last season, so just integral to the framework of the club. And yeah, it's not been a steady upwards trajectory for John McGinn. There's been ups, there's been downs, but much like several other players in the squad, certainly under Unai, it's definitely picked up. So so happy to see him tied down. And I think the general consensus is that Ollie's next, which I think is just as important because I think his deal runs out the season after next. So getting that sorted as quickly as possible would be good, especially considering, United were sniffing around him, as we sort of reported on a couple of episodes back, mate. So yeah, a no-brainer for sure. And let's make sure Ollie's next.
Absolutely. I'm not worried about United, I don't think, because it feels like even if they do come in, mate, we've seen, I mean, even live as this is happening, their negotiations with Mason Mount, we would be able to get a hefty fee, do the same thing that Ajax did with Anthony and all that kind of thing. But on the discussion of new things, mate, obviously the kit was released the other day. I know we've spoke about it sort of privately, and I'm loving it. I'm just wondering if anything's changed in the past few days, mate. How are you feeling on it? Obviously, the pattern on it is the sort of the peaks and troughs of a sound wave from the LA chant. There's always some nice meaning, I guess, around all of these designs that we get presented, and I've seen a lot of people go, "Oh, I love it," after that corporate bollocks has been shoved on them. I don't love it and I don't hate it, but I probably swing more to hate than love.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
That's where I sort of sit on it. I think it's okay. I think it's been marred a little bit by the whole badge thing and the sponsor thing, and the fact that the launch was a mess. I think dampened it for a lot of people. Is that it just, everything about it was a little bit weird, and I'm sure we'll get into the whole badge thing, but went live in the bull ring before Villa Twitter launched, the official account launched it, and then for a brief few seconds it was available on the club shop before we tweeted it out, and then we tweeted it out with these images, and then randomly 2 hours later, I think through Project B6, that really nice video
That was quality. That was brilliant.
Which is great, but it's like, why would you not? I mean, you and I both working in social, mate. As soon as I saw it, I was like, you have to launch with that. That has to be the first piece of media, because that's wonderful. And then obviously, I think it's great that they've involved Project B6, because that's a fantastic initiative that sort of powers so much of the fan experience of Villa Park. And I love that they've integrated with them, and I like that they gave B6 some of the some of the prominence online when it came to launching it. But yeah, the whole thing felt really, really bizarre to me, mate. And now
the video got deleted as well, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Like weird.
No, yeah, there's just a lot of weird stuff going on around this launch, mate. And I think the sponsor and everything like that just sort of fuels it, really. I think Castor have been pretty okay. I wouldn't say much more than that. And I think this kit's of the same cloth, really.
I just hope we don't win anything in this kit. It's just vile. I don't know. It's not vile. It looks like a bus seat. It's just, I think, I do have a sort of degree of sympathy when it comes to a home kit, because at the end of the day, it has to be claret and have blue, arms. That's just, there's not much you can really do with it. And I even think back, everyone always goes on about the Luke kits, and I do love the Luke kits and the sentimentality of that as well. It was just a two-tone claret stripe. Again, that was nothing special. That was simple but effective. So maybe whoever the supplier is, because I think the Castor deal's up after next year, right? Or maybe there's one more season, but hopefully whoever the next supplier is, or Castor next season, can come up with some more original ideas. And like the whole badge thing as well, mate, it's just a bit messy, isn't it? Like, it's quite obvious reading between the lines. Chris Heck is not happy with the rebrand, and it's even clearer to see that this was a personal vanity project. And I genuinely believed at the time, mate, I don't know about you, but that survey that we were sent out, we were led down a path with that survey. They wanted the round badge, and the questions were loaded, and even the examples that they showed, like 80% of them were round badges. Perslow wanted this, and it's quite evident to me, at least, as I say, reading between the lines, that Chris Heck is not feeling it. And he was involved in the rebrand of the 76ers. So this whole, we're not changing the branding anywhere else. We're doing a trial for a year, and we'll take global feedback on, and all this kind of stuff. It's a bit of a PR disaster, really. And I get it's making sure that we get it right, because obviously the 150th anniversary is on the horizon. But it's just not a good look, really, is it?
No, absolutely not. And what is even more interesting is this all not the reason that we asked to be away on the first game of the season?
True.
So we could amend, what is going on, man? What is going on? This whole thing is just this is what you get, when you change so much upstairs through such a transition period, aesthetically for the club. You're going to get backlash from this, and I'd be surprised, to be honest with you, if we have this badge for more than a season, and if it's just on the shirts. And I just wonder what's the point. God knows how much money has been, I don't want to say wasted on this project, but I mean, on this whole redesign, it's going to be so much. The badge change, the last time we changed the badge, in which we effectively made it smaller, dropped the word prepared, that was a multi-million-pound project to change that, just that small tweak. So I dread to think.
It's messy, mate. It's just messy.
That's all. You can't really say too much, mate, because most of it is guesswork. But at the surface level, unless there's sort of something going on behind the scenes that I don't know about that regions all of this, which there may be, I'm going to accept that possibility. On the surface, at least from the fans who are said to be the sort of backbone of this experience, it doesn't breed too well.
No, it doesn't. And there's a few arguments for it, though, isn't there? Because some people who I don't think I feel neither here nor there about this round badge, if I'm being honest. I think with the line facing the way, all that kind of thing, it's all just a bit It's a bit odd. But people's argument is, well, 76% of people voted for that badge. Then the gas stamp one wasn't special either. Like, it was kind of, you were picking between two fairly crap badges. I personally wouldn't be surprised if we go to just the lion. I feel like that's very American and it's very unique, and I think that's something that Chris Heck would be interested in. But it's important that we get this right, because if not, I mean, thankfully with this whole badge thing, we haven't had a Leeds situation, have we, mate? You remember that badge, the beat in the chest?
God, yeah.
Obviously, that is a complete and utter PR nightmare. So thankfully, we've not sort of shat the bed like that. But it's important we stick this land in, especially with the anniversary coming up and all that. But onto the realm of transfers, mate. Few interesting links. I think we'll start with Thomas Munier, mate, who we mentioned was linked for like a second, and like that was it for a move between 2 to 4 million euros. Really interesting utility player, can play as a sort of inverted right back. He has played as a 6, as a centre half at times as well. Has been at Dortmund for quite some time now. Obviously spent some time at PSG before that as well. A lot of people losing their mind over this, and one, because of the fee, because I think people just expect us to go and break the bank with every single transfer, which isn't realistic. But if I'm being honest, this feels very much like an Unai Emery signing, don't you think, mate? Like a versatile utility man, will fit in anywhere, has experience at the highest level, obviously would have been at Paris Saint-Germain when Unai Emery was there as well. This feels like something that would have been a sensible move. Obviously, it's gone quiet in the days since that link, mate. But personally, this one hasn't offended me. I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't really get the outrage over this. Like, I guess that he's 31, which is it's like something to consider. I don't think it's he's played so many minutes last season. He's still offered a very good sort of output. He's a right back that sort of likes to really get involved. He averages more progressive passes than Matty Cash per 90, 3.94 to Cash's 3.71, so it's pretty close in that regard. But you can sort of see that he also averages more in progressive carries, 2.31 per 90 to Cash's 2.8, and then defensively perhaps checks out a little bit better as well, averaging more successful tackles per 90 and more interceptions per 90 than Matty Cash. Obviously, he's not going to be as quick or as fleet-footed as Matty Cash, but being a strong fullback in the Premier League nowadays relies a lot on a fullback's ability to be progressive in play. And I just don't really get the sort of outrage when we're all desperate to keep on a 39-year-old Ashley Young,
yeah,
bringing in a 31-year-old Thomas Munier for like £1.6 million. It's just out of the question. I don't know. I feel I don't think it will happen, but it seems quite sensible, because we can't go out and spend 30-40 million on every single player. We know that we need to add quite a lot of depth this year. And 408 career appearances, so many of them on European stages. There probably aren't too many more experienced right backs around on the market in Europe right now. You're right. It doesn't offend me. I don't think it will happen, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. I think wages is maybe like the only thing as well that you'd go, or maybe probably he'd want a bit of a hefty salary, and there's the whole sort of moving at his age. I guess I'd imagine his family are nice and settled in Germany, obviously very close to Belgium, his homeland, all that kind of stuff to consider. But when the Premier League comes knocking, it's almost impossible for players to sort of dismiss that. But we'd get that one out of the way, because that's probably the least interesting out of the transfers that we're talking about today, mate. I guess we'll build up. We'll do Chiesa last. We'll go with Tyler Adams next, mate, because again, this is another one which has people very split, and it's 100% recency bias. It is 100% recency bias, and it's 100% because he plays for Leeds that people do not want Tyler Adams. He is a phenomenal player. I can guarantee anybody that hasn't watched Leeds or hasn't watched the US men's national team closely, I can't blame you if you haven't. It's literally part of my job, which is why I feel so passionately about Tyler Adams. He is a diamond in the rough. He's absolutely phenomenal. He's, like McGinn, a very honest player on the pitch, averaging 3.72 tackles per 90, puts him in top 1 percentile of midfielders in past year, averaging 1.46 interceptions, 2 blocks, 1.21 clearances, and he's winning about an aerial a game as well, which isn't bad considering he's below 6 foot. This guy is the perfect sort of, I mean, first of all, I think he's got a very high ceiling. I don't think he's better than any of our midfielders as it currently stands, but he is the perfect Boubacar Kamara Cup rotation player that can also grow to be just as good, if not better. Tyler Adams, he's a dog, man. Like he's brilliant, and he's reportedly available for around the £18 million mark, which is around what Leeds had paid. They're desperate to keep him at the club, which tells you everything you should need to know. And really, things started going downhill for Leeds when he got the injury during the first half of the season. And again, that came from overuse because they relied on him so heavily because he is just so good. Long-time listeners of the channel would remember Mark Rocker, who obviously Leeds signed, mate. We spoke a lot about him. Leeds obviously signed him in the summer, and they ended up having to use Rocker a bit more than I think they may have anticipated. And I think any Leeds fan would tell you that Tyler Adams is 5 times the player that Mark Rocker is. And we were excited about Mark Rocker, mate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I really like this one. I really, really like this one. I think when you especially, when you consider the context that not only do we need to add midfielders to the roster that we've currently got already, we need to add more midfielders to replace Morgan Sanson, who's going to leave. Yeah. Marvelous Nakamba, that's going to leave. So there's 2 players going out the squad that you need to get bodies in to replace. And this just makes like a lot of sense to me. I actually think he had a pretty good year last season. I think only Casemiro, João Palhinha, and maybe Rodri. So of all players to play more than 2,000 minutes in the Premier League last season, only João Palhinha and Casemiro averaged more tackles per 90 than Tyler Adams. I think he had a lot of good moments last season in a struggling Leeds side. FB ref will liken him to Idrissa Gueye, Boubacar Kamara, funnily enough, Wilfred Ndidi, and Fabinho. I think he's a little bit more all action than someone like Kamara. I don't think he's as like composed and as languid in possession. He's obviously a really key part of that MMA midfield that went to the World Cup with the USMNT last year of McKennie, Yunus Musa, and Tyler Adams, just 24 years old. There's been a couple of things which I think Villa fans have tried to reason it with. I know that he played some right back in Germany and back in the MLS. But I wouldn't read too much into that, to be honest with you. I don't think that would be in our plans for him. Then, like, I always feel like whenever we're linked with an American player, it's like, Wes Edens wants to start up an MLS franchise. Like, this would be massive in terms of growing the brand in the States. I don't think it's necessarily about that either. I mean, look how excited Nassef was to work with Trezeguet. He wasn't. Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't.
Fucked him off at the first job.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like we had there's Trezeguet with like 5 million followers or whatever it is on Instagram. Like he's like a cult hero in Egypt, and bang, he's on the first flight to Turkey. I don't think there's as much in that as we necessarily think. I do think there's an element of it as well, but I don't think Tyler Adams is necessarily a name that, like, you look at what Leeds did when it was Jesse Marsh and McKennie and Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams. Like, that's something that's going to draw American eyes. I don't think adding Tyler Adams into our midfield rotation is going to make Villa the next Wrexham in America that, like, people are, like, flocking to their TV screens to watch. I think there's an element of it, but I don't know. I don't think that's a primary driver behind the move.
No, but if we sign more than one, if say Pulisic comes, then maybe we could cite that as a reason. I'd take Pulisic as well. By the way, I'm all for an American invasion. I think there's a lot of snobbery when it comes to American players. People get very precious because it's the one thing that America isn't better than us at. They're not. Football isn't their game, so I think British people get quite territorial over that. And really, people should be welcoming Tyler Adams with open arms. As you say, mate, he's not as polished as Kamara, but I think he offers a different skill set. He offers a hustle that I don't think anyone necessarily has in our squad. And I was very impressed when he came to Villa Park as well. I thought he was, he was the one Leeds player that sort of war of attrition in the middle of the park. It was just we were constantly going at each other and winning the ball back in the midfield and going again. And Tyler was that guy. And I think for the fee as well, when you consider it's about what you're paying for, end up paying for Leander Dendoncker. And this is no Dendonck slander. He's obviously a very different player to Tyler Adams. I personally think it's a no-brainer, mate.
Yep.
I'd be more than happy with Tyler Adams walking through the door. I think as well, some of the frustration comes from the fact, I mean, the window's only been open to like 10 days. And I feel like there needs to be some perspective on that. There's only one team that has signed more than one player. So things are going to take time, especially when you're dealing with free agents. Like we moved quick with Tielemans, but the longer the free agents can wait, the better the offer they can get. So when it comes to like free agents, I don't know how active we're going to be in that market specifically, mate. Now we've got Tielemans done. But, they're going to be like the later ones, I think. Obviously, pre-season starts soon, so people are understandably worried about not, what people want to get signings done before we're heading out stateside, which I get. And I guess you would want Tyler Adams for these kind of games. Should there be any truth in that, mate? But like the window's been open 10 days. Like I feel like people, and I could understand why. If Tyler Adams is the second name through the door, I think people would be frustrated considering we've missed out on Asensio and there's Federico Chiesa, who we're going to talk about next, mate. But I just perspective, like calm. Unai will get in who he needs to get in, and we've seen how fantastic he did with the players he had at his disposal already. Only Manchester City had more points than us since Emery arrived in the league with that squad. So even if we don't end up strengthening as much as some may feel we need, I don't doubt that Unai is going to struggle to get the best out of these players, mate.
No, absolutely not. Like we have to sort of pick a side. You know what I mean? Like we've seen in the January window that if the deal is not right, we won't do it.
Yeah.
Despite how necessary it may seem, that we can't have. And I'm not sort of, but you'll have people out there that are saying absolutely not to Thomas Munier, and then going, but why aren't we getting more signings in? It's because do you know what I mean? Like it's like if the deal's not right, we have to accept that we're going to have to wait, or maybe we don't get all the depth that we need in certain positions. Like we're clearly not a side that are just going to go out and spend whatever to get whatever in. We're clearly going to be very savvy on this, and we've seen that if the deal's not right, we just won't make that deal. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's something that continued through the summer. Like I think if we get to the first game of the season, we've got a reserve goalie and we've got a new backup right back. We've added some depth at centre back. We've gotten like 2 or 3 new midfielders in. There's a new wide man and there's a backup striker. I will be very, very, very surprised. We're going to be like, do you know what I mean? Like those are positions that we need to address. But if we do all that, that will be a miracle. So just something to consider.
Especially when we're shopping in this market, and obviously DiMarzio have reported that we've made a move for Chiesa and he's rejected, which is interesting. I feel like transfers, they've changed so much, haven't they, mate? Because this used to be tapping up. We're seeing all this stuff with like Rice to like Arsenal and City and all this, and it's like personal terms are agreed, but a fee hasn't. That used to be called tapping up. What happened to when did we become so sort of like relaxed on that front? But Chiesa reportedly rejecting a move to Villa. I believe the bid to Juve was like 60 million euros, mate. Am I right? And
yes, yep.
That's a lot of money. Chiesa is a phenomenal player. He's not played as much football over the past year as I think he would probably have liked to due to injuries and whatnot. But I think it's fair to say that Federico Chiesa is one of, if not Italy's best player. And one of his most exciting players as well. Obviously, had a spell at Fiorentina, came to Juventus. Max Allegri needs to be arrested for war crimes, making this guy play as a left wing back, because he's just the most phenomenal attacker. Can play anywhere along that forward line, in my opinion. Absolutely capable, and would be much like Asensio, really, the perfect foil to Ollie Watkins in that sort of shadow striker role that we're looking to recruit. I just can't see it happening. Though. Obviously, he's reportedly rejected it according to Damasio. I don't see this, and maybe I'm sort of damaged by the fact that Asensio has rejected us, and we've had a few of these sort of high-profile players be like, "No, he will outlive Allegri at Juventus should he choose to stay." So I think he will sort of realise that better days will come. He will go back to playing in his best position. Obviously, Juventus, humongous club, like, you know, absolutely massive. Although they may be stepping out of the Conference League actually, which is quite interesting. But you know, Juventus are a huge club. He's obviously Italian, staying in his home nation, all that kind of thing. It seems too good to be true, really, doesn't it, mate? That we could get this one done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does. This is such an exciting one, and yeah, maybe it is that he's just so desperate to play in the Conference League. Well, this is what I mean. This is what I mean to sort of counter the whole transfer thing. Is that clearly we've been trying. You know, there was Asensio, and we're talking about Kangin Lee, and like all of these guys that there's been pretty links to, and now with Chiesa, it's clear that we're in the market and we're trying. You know, there's links as like that, and then all the stuff is a very interesting one. I do think that comes this summer that's of that ilk. I do think we'll go and sign someone of that quality. I think Chiesa is maybe just a step up. I mean, if Juve aren't in Europe football next season, I think that gives a lot of players in there problems. I think Chiesa, like, if he's going to leave Juve, he's got to leave for Champions League football. I'd be so surprised if he leaves to go and play for, like, obviously, for a club in the Conference League. I think he needs to be playing on that, like, elite European stage, and Villa aren't quite there yet. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel like a lot of people know who he is. He had a fantastic run in the Euros as well, which I think put him on a lot of people's radar a couple of seasons back. So yeah, I think there will be a player that comes in of this stature. I don't think Chiesa is it. Apparently he's turned down that new contract at Juventus and sort of back and forth about wage demands and stuff like that. You know, he's been linked to Liverpool and Newcastle, as everyone are linked to. So yeah, it's one where if we're going to win that race, I think we're going to have to stump up a lot of cash, and he's understandably sort of apparently not too enthusiastic about the move. He's got 2 years left on his deal, so he can afford to wait this out. But yeah, you're right. The risk with Chiesa is that that injury was a big one. It was a cruciate ligament rupture, wasn't it? And so that's going to take he didn't have a good season last year. 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 goal contributions in 33 games. Not all of those starts because he was coming back from those injuries. So it was a very disrupted season in what was, for certainly the first half of the year anyway, a very bad season for Juventus. So obviously, like, coming back into a side that was struggling in the league, all of this controversy that was going on around the board, it's been a difficult time to play for Juve. So yeah, don't think you can read too much into his numbers. The eye test will check out. He's a fantastic player, but yeah, would be surprised if this one came off.
I think the perspective that I think we need, and I don't think people are willing to accept this because of just the sort of the mini rivalry with Newcastle. They've got Champions League football, right? They're currently willing to spend £70 million, which is reportedly all they have as well, by the way, on Sandro Tonali, who, by the way, isn't even that good. Like, but obviously he's someone who's desirable. He's at the heart of that midfield for AC Milan. Sort of had a great come up. I don't think he's lived up to the hype personally. I think Newcastle are massively overpaying, but when it comes to big name, huge club in Italy, 70 million euros, God knows how much they're offering. I think it was an £8 million annual salary.
Yeah,
like they're throwing everything at him. And obviously Newcastle can because they're in the Champions League. So I think that is something that we do have to consider. We're trying to shop in Waitrose, but maybe we should still be in Sainsbury's or Tesco's for now until we can reach the Champions League spots, if that is something that we're capable of doing. And I think Unai's got the clout, Unai's got the pull, but I do think that maybe I don't think Kang-in Lee was necessarily out of reach. I just don't think we moved fast enough with that one. I mean, obviously he's moved to Paris Saint-Germain, and you can't blame him. I mean, a load of people are like, why would you do that? No manager, got this, that, blah, blah, blah. Who knows what Mbappe's doing? But like, you're talking about like the money that this guy would have been offered to go live in Paris as well. Very desirable place to go and live for a lot of people. So I don't think anyone can begrudge Kang that move, especially with like Messi leaving, Neymar's reportedly going to leave, and Mbappe's going to leave within the next year as well. He will play a lot of games, so you know that there is that he will have considered as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, mate, and hopefully, I mean, I'm not sort of panicking, but it would be nice to get someone through the door within the next week or so, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think shopping is such a high bracket. Like, when your players are turning down because they want to stay at Juventus or they want to go to Paris Saint-Germain or like whatever. It's like, this is the bracket shopping in, and we are going to have a harder time convincing players to come to Villa rather than these clubs, because we're not we're not established on the European scene. We are like, you sort of have to take the carrot and be spent off. It's like we are a brand new kid on the scene that's only playing in the conference leagues. So you have to imagine how you'd feel around the same clubs that are doing this in La Liga or like Serie A or Bundesliga, or like, because we have that additional pool because we're in the Premier League, we have Unai Emery, but we're so new on the scene. We have very, like, in terms of convincing players that yes, this is where you need to come to spend your prime. Don't go to Paris Saint-Germain, come to Villa. We're on the way up. It's a difficult sell when you're competing with these clubs, and yeah, won't be the first time, won't be the last time we have this kind of issue, but that's why I think we need to be a bit savvy.
Absolutely, mate. Savvy is the word, and I'm sure that the kind of players that Monchi is looking to bring in, as we know, he's more of a on-earth flip kind of guy. That's what's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below on anything we spoke about today. I feel like we've covered quite a lot today. Weather is absolutely beautiful, so I hope you guys are either like listening to this in the garden or having a beer or just doing whatever, having a great time. And as I say, hopefully there will be a signing soon that we can talk about, because that is ultimately what we love doing. So yeah, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, comment down below, and leave a like on the video of the Villa.